The CDC issued travel warnings to popular summer vacation destinations because of the Zika virus. The warnings pertain to Mexico, islands in the Caribbean and Pacific, as well as countries in Central and South America. There are cases of pregnant women and their families claiming to cancel trips to destinations in the United States where cases of Zika virus have been reported. In St. Louis, a research team at Washington University School of Medicine is making headway combating Zika. Zika. It's a word the world had not heard much about. There wasn't a pressing reason. Now there is. The mosquito-transmitted Zika virus has laboratories at Washington University School of Medicine hard at work. This is the mysterious Zika as seen through a microscope.
Mostly Zika, no one really knew about it until a few months ago, when all of a sudden it causes epidemic in Brazil. And Dr. Diamond is an expert on these type of viruses. So he wanted to start studying how this virus worked. And a thing to remember is that these viruses infect only humans. They don't actually infect mice.
In order to combat Zika, mice would need to be infected. In the School of Medicine's Infectious Disease Division, Dr. Michael Diamond's team genetically altered the mice, altering their immune response. They successfully created a mouse model for the Zika infection to occur. This is to learn more about Zika, and eventually, mouse models would be used for testing vaccines and therapeutics. And the pressure is on. The World Health Organization declared an international emergency as millions of people will be infected by the end of the year. Zika was first discovered in monkeys in the 1940s, eventually infecting people in isolated parts of Africa and Asia. But only recently, Zika is spreading rapidly through South America, and it's spreading into the southern United States. Women who are pregnant or will become pregnant and their unborn babies are the concern. The Zika virus can be passed to the fetus. Zika is crossing the placenta and attacking fetal nerve cells, causing microcephaly and other birth defects. Babies with the condition have unusually small heads and underdeveloped brains. Infection can cause severe microcephaly. The brain may stop growing. Brain damage can be severe, including fetal and infant deaths. Just how Zika is getting past the placenta is a mystery.
We're still trying to figure out how the virus infects the placenta, why Zika infects the placenta and not other flaviviruses, whether there are differences in Zika virus strains.
There are all these different cells in the placenta which normally are supposed to protect the fetus from anything that happens outside, which is why there's billions of us still alive. Despite all kinds of infections that are out there, placentas actually do their job really well. It's like Ocean's 11.
Never been done before.
The baby is like the safe, you know, where all the gold is, the good stuff is. And then there's so many locked doors and walls away from it. So anyone who's trying to break in has to open up all these doors, break all these walls in order to get to where the baby is. And most infectious organisms are not actually able to do that. So it's very remarkable how well the placenta actually works. But Zika somehow is able to just open all the doors, break through all the walls, and go straight into the fetus. So that makes it extremely scary.
As a leader in women's reproductive sciences research at Washington University School of Medicine, Dr. Indira Mysorker explains how she became involved. She says she happened to be at a dinner with Diamond when he was talking about Zika, and that got her thinking.
I emailed him and said, hey, but I work on pregnancy. I work on the placenta and placental infections. So within a week we got together and outlined a project where we were going to take his mice and make them pregnant and give them the infection, and then we would look at the placenta, we would look at the mom, we would look at the placenta and the growing fetus, and we would look at the fetuses, and that's how it started.
Soon, a genetically modified pregnant mouse model was created.
We were able to then inoculate pregnant mice at a certain point in their pregnancy, equivalent to late in the first trimester, and show that the virus could actually infect cells in the placenta cause damage to cells in the placenta, and then move into the fetal circulation, and then go to the fetal brain and cause injury in the fetal brain. And so for us, this was an important finding because it established that all you needed was the virus to do this. And this creates a model for eventual evaluation of drugs, new therapies that are being studied by others as well as us, vaccines.
Diamond successfully takes the next step. His team discovered a potential drug target to combat Zika by identifying a single gene pathway that spreads the Zika virus between cells. They show that by selectively shutting down the individual gene in this pathway, the spread of the infection can be stopped.
And we identified a gene through this genetic screen that we used. Now, identifying a target is just the first step. You have a long way to go to actually generate a drug. You need to then be able to identify drugs that hit that target and do it in such a way that they don't cause harm to the host.
Diamond is also working with another researcher on another approach. Using the mouse model, they have produced and characterized antibodies that protect against Zika. They identified the precise spot on the virus the specialized proteins recognize and neutralize. This can lead to a vaccine, better diagnostic tests, or treatments for the disease. Other labs around the world are also making progress.
Certainly every week we're seeing new papers. For example, the first vaccines have been tested now. There's vaccines going into humans. There's been vaccines that have been published. New antibody reagents which have protective efficacy have been published now.
Diamond says testing new drug therapies first in animals, then people, can take years. So the hope is to identify existing drugs already FDA approved. As Zika spreads, more is learned. Diamond says it's not just a mosquito-transmitted disease. He says studies show Zika is sexually transmitted, and his research is part of the science behind the claim.
What we did find in the mouse model is that the virus goes to the testes in high levels and also persists there. And then subsequently, there's been now good longitudinal studies in humans showing clear evidence of sexual transmission. And that's why the CDC issued a warning and said that if you get infected and you're a male, there's going to be at least a lengthy period of time where you should probably not try to conceive.
Diamond says there's so much to learn, so many questions. The fight to protect the unborn from Zika has researchers in this new battlefield fighting an enemy they don't fully understand. And the clock is ticking.
But in general, how do viruses cause damage to the placenta? And of course, we're very much interested in trying to understand Zika right at this moment, but it raises bigger questions about why the immune system doesn't combat this and why one virus can overcome this. Because today it might be Zika, but tomorrow there could be another pathogen. And the more we learn in general about the process, the more prepared we are the next time something happens which may be related to it.